Fasting, as an obligation for Muslims, was established during the second year after the migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina, known as the Hijrah. This corresponds to the year 622 CE in the Gregorian calendar. The obligation of fasting during the month of Ramadan was specifically mandated in the second year of the Islamic lunar calendar. However, fasting is a practice observed in various religions around the world. It often involves abstaining from food, drink, or certain activities for a specific period of time. Muslims observe fasting during the month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. Fasting in Ramadan involves abstaining from food, drink, smoking, and marital relations from dawn until sunset. The fast is broken each day with a meal called iftar, often starting with dates and water, followed by a larger meal. Ramadan fasting is one of the 5 pillars of Islam and is obligatory for adult Muslims, with exceptions for those who are ill, pregnant, traveling, elderly, or menstruating. Some Christian denominations practice fasting as a spiritual discipline, especially during Lent, the period leading up to Easter. Lent typically lasts for 40 days, symbolizing the 40 days Jesus spent fasting in the wilderness. Fasting during Lent often involves abstaining from certain foods, such as meat or dairy products, on certain days. Some Christians also fast on Fridays, commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus. Yom Kippur, also known as the Day of Atonement, is the holiest day in Judaism. It involves fasting for approximately 25 hours, from sunset to sunset. Fasting on Yom Kippur is a way for Jews to atone for their sins and seek forgiveness from God. Tisha B'Av is another day of fasting and mourning in Judaism, commemorating various tragedies in Jewish history, including the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem. Fasting is common among Hindus and is often practiced on specific days dedicated to certain deities or for religious festivals. Some Hindus fast on auspicious days such as Ekadashi, Pradosha, or during Navaratri. Fasting is not as prevalent in Buddhism as it is in some other religions. However, some Buddhist traditions may observe fasting as a form of spiritual discipline, particularly during retreats or as part of certain rituals. Fasting is not a prominent practice in Sikhism. However, Sikhs may observe fasting on certain occasions or as a personal choice for spiritual purposes. Fasting is not solely restricted to religious practices but is also found in various cultural contexts around the world. Traditional Chinese culture. Fasting has been practiced in traditional Chinese culture for health and spiritual reasons. The Taoist tradition includes fasting as a way to purify the body and cultivate spiritual energy, qi. Fasting is also practiced in conjunction with traditional Chinese medicine for detoxification and healing. Ancient Greek and Roman cultures. Fasting was practiced in ancient Greek and Roman cultures, often associated with purification rituals and religious festivals. The Eleusinian Mysteries, a religious initiation ceremony in ancient Greece, involved fasting as part of the preparatory rites. Native American cultures. Fasting is practiced by some Native American tribes as part of vision quests or spiritual ceremonies. Vision quests typically involve fasting, solitude, and communing with nature to seek guidance, insight, or spiritual power. Japanese culture. Fasting, known as shugyo or ascetic training, has been practiced in Japanese Buddhist traditions. Some forms of meditation retreats or training involve fasting as a means to discipline the body and mind. Nordic and Scandinavian cultures. Fasting was practiced in ancient Nordic and Scandinavian cultures as part of rituals and religious ceremonies. Some historical accounts suggest fasting was associated with rites of passage, seasonal festivals, or spiritual purification. Indigenous cultures. Fasting is observed in various indigenous cultures around the world as part of spiritual practices, ceremonies, or rituals. In many indigenous societies, fasting may be integrated into healing ceremonies, initiation rites, or communal rituals for spiritual renewal and connection with the natural world. Fasting has gained popularity in modern wellness culture for purported health benefits, including weight loss, detoxification, and improved metabolic health. Practices such as intermittent fasting, juice fasting, or water fasting are embraced by many individuals for physical and mental well-being. Fasting, or Sawm, holds a central position in Islam as one of the 5 pillars, the fundamental acts of worship that shape a Muslim's faith and practice. The obligation of fasting for Muslims is not merely a physical abstention from food and drink but a deeply spiritual and transformative act. Significance of fasting in Islam. Fasting during the month of Ramadan is a significant act of worship in Islam, ordained by Allah in the Quran. O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting as it was decreed upon those before you that you may become righteous. This verse highlights the primary objective of fasting, to attain righteousness and develop taqwa, God consciousness. Obligatory nature of fasting. Fasting during Ramadan is obligatory for every mentally mature, healthy adult Muslim who is not traveling and is not exempted due to specific conditions such as illness, pregnancy, breastfeeding, or menstruation. Rules and requirements of fasting: intention, niyah, abstinence, additional acts of worship, and breaking the fast are all crucial aspects of observing Ramadan. Virtues and spiritual benefits: taqwa, God consciousness, empathy and compassion, purification of the soul, and strengthening community bonds are among the many benefits of fasting. Consequences of neglecting fasting. Neglecting the obligation of fasting without valid reasons is considered a grave sin in Islam and requires repentance. Conclusion. In conclusion, fasting is not merely a ritualistic observance but a profound act of worship with spiritual, moral, and communal dimensions.